Hello, good morning, everyone from Phoenix, Arizona. My name is Kenneth Steinis. I'll be your host today. Welcome to Microsoft Project for the Web in the Government Community Cloud, which completes the platform for PPM. With me today as a co-host is Jan Adams, who is the Enterprise Portfolio Management Specialist from Microsoft Federal. We have, I think, a great agenda for you today. We're going to start off, Jan is going to start off with an introduction to modern work management and how Microsoft sees that and what the vision is. Then we're going to do just a couple of slides positioning the platform for PPM, and we will spend the majority of our time on a live demonstration where we're going to focus on the Microsoft Project for the Web to manage the work, Microsoft Teams for collaboration, and the Power Platform for PPM and reporting. And of course, Microsoft Project for the Web was just made available in GCC earlier this year, so relatively new. We're going to have lots of time for discussion and Q&A today, so please do use the chat function to ask questions throughout the presentation today. We're going to have, like I said, a lot of time for Q&A at the end. We will also make a recording of the presentation available to all registrants following the presentation if some of your colleagues were unable to make it today. And so with that, I'm going to ask Jan to speak to Microsoft's modern work management vision. Go ahead, Jan.
Thanks, Kenneth. Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Jan Adams, and I am the Enterprise Project and Portfolio Management Specialist for Microsoft's federal customers. Thank you for joining us today for the presentation. Before Kenneth jumps into the demo, I want to take a few minutes just to talk about Microsoft's vision with work and project management. In modernizing your project experience, it's important to note that teams really want to work the way they want to work, while your senior leadership still strives to get the results that they need. Our mission is to empower companies to achieve better results. We can do this by aligning our investments with our project and resources agency-wide, collaborating, utilizing intuitive, consistent tools available in our Government Community Cloud platform. Our aim is to provide a transparent, versatile, intuitive, integrated, and compliant solution. This is our modern work management. Go ahead, Kenneth, to the next slide. In meeting these objectives, there's some challenges we certainly need to address in the market. These days, work is really happening remotely in the office with different types of solutions, not all talking to one another. And we really need to get all of this in one place, so we certainly can make better decisions and see if all of our projects are on schedule and on a budget. Teams are choosing to manage their projects and portfolios with different types of tools. These tools enable individual project managers to get more done and allow for wider collaboration and adoption. The occasional project managers want a simple tool with visualization, which allows for quicker delivery of their results. Starting with a tool which is fast, flexible, and offers the modern experience is advantageous to all of our users. But business disruptions caused by security or compliance issues can certainly cripple an agency. Trust in being able to innovate with our secure and scalable platform, the Power Platform. Go ahead to the next one, Kenneth. So you can see here, when you're managing your projects and your work within the Microsoft Government Community Cloud, we have enterprise-grade performance, 99.9% uptime. Obviously, with our Government Community Cloud, we reach our IL2 security grade. We have view-only access now available in Project for the Web for those subscribers that are Office 365 subscribers. In the past, any project users would have to be licensed. Now we're allowing the ability for outside the team to actually view any project plans. Certainly, we can secure our sharing by limiting who we can share the project plans with by our Microsoft Office 365 groups. So there's a lot of integration, not only with Office 365, but with our platform in Azure as well. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Kenneth.
Great. Thanks, Jan, for that introduction. So I'm going to talk just 2 slides and then we'll get to the live demonstration. I want to talk about kind of how this platform comes together. So the focus for Microsoft really in recent years has been on the platform for PPM as opposed to a PPM solution, sort of an out of the box. And at Sensei, we think that's really great because the platform consists of Microsoft Project for the web to manage the work. And just to be clear, a lot of you are used to the desktop client and Project Online. Well, Project for the web essentially uses the scheduling engine from those two, but delivers the experience on the Power Platform and tightly integrated into Dynamics and Office 365 with a much more intuitive experience, easy to use experience. So with the platform for PPM, the idea is that the work is being managed in Microsoft Project for the web. The collaboration happens in Microsoft Teams. And then the Power Platform provides all of the additional capabilities, both around at a project level for program and portfolio management, intake, resource management, as we'll see here in just a minute, and also all of the reporting. So it's really the combination of the three that pulls it all together. And that means that we support that broad range of disciplines, from the task to project management, program portfolio management, resource management, strategy, and more. Now, we are not limited to one execution tool, one scheduling tool, one task management tool. So a lot of our clients are using a mix of tools. Again, back to the work management vision for Microsoft, let teams work the way they want and executives get what they need. So what this also does is provide you an opportunity to continue closing out projects that you may have going on in Project Online today as you're spinning up Project for the web or even using a combination of tools. The absolute key here is that regardless of where these tasks are being managed, you get a consistent experience for project managers and their teams around collaboration, document management, risks and issues and changes and decisions and lessons learned, financials, reporting. It's all consistent. So it doesn't matter whether my tasks sit in execution tool 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5. My documents are always consistently in the same place. So are my issues and my risks and so on. And that same concept holds true for intake. So we can start submitting a proposal or a business case for a new initiative without even having an execution tool. So the Power Platform enable us to do intake, enable us to group projects into programs and portfolios. Resource management is same thing. We can do resource management. We could do requests for resources, allocation of resources, again, regardless of where the tasks are being managed. So that's very key. And then providing our team members with an integrated timesheet, if you're using timesheets, that shows us all of the tasks across all the different projects that we're assigned to, again, regardless of tools. And then at a strategic level, the strategic portfolio management level, executives can set out the strategic themes for the organization, and we can track through strategic goals and through benefits the realization of those as they're worked on through projects, programs, and portfolios. So really connecting the whole stack, connecting strategy to execution. So let's go take a look at that. We're going to start with Project for the Web. So we'll do a walkthrough of that, and then we're going to add teams, and then we're going to look at what Power Platform does for us. Now, if you're not sure whether you have Project for the Web yet, the easiest thing to do is to type in project.microsoft.com. Then you know whether Project for the Web has been activated in your tenant yet. That gets us the Project Hub where we can see, any recent projects here. And you'll notice this is both PWA, which is Project Online, and Project for the Web projects. So we get a combination of the two here. You also can favorite different projects, whether they're Project for the Web, Project Online, or even roadmap projects. To start a new project, you can start with a blank project, or you can import a project from an MPP file. Again, if you're used to using the desktop client and you want to try this on for size, it's just a really good opportunity. In a matter of a minute or two, you can import your MPP file into here. There are also some standardized templates, again, to help you if you're maybe just playing with it, trying to get familiar with it. We're going to use an existing project in the interest of time and just to kind of show off some of the different capabilities here. So Project for the Web has 3 different task-focused views. There's the grid view, there's the board view, and there's a timeline view, where the grid view gives you a list of your tasks. So in this case, we're showing names, who the work is assigned to, percent complete, start, finish, duration, effort remaining, depends on, so dependencies, and labels. Or you can add other columns here as well. You can add the bucket or any custom fields that you might have added. So cost and value are two of the custom fields here. You can add the priority column. Let's actually do that. So you can look at your tasks by priority as well. So this is, should look pretty familiar to you. There's a standard work breakdown structure here. Now, if I open up, let me go find a good task down here. The test module integration task has some good data. So when I mouse over a task, I get a little information icon here. I can open up the details. You can either view the details on the right-hand side, or I prefer to open them in a dialog so we can see them a little bit better. This is the level of detail I have at a task level. I have the name of the task, where it belongs in the hierarchy. This is under system testing. I can see who's, and I think I accidentally clicked on that. Apologies. Let's try that one more time. So I can see where it belongs. I can see who the work is assigned to. And this is all integrated into Microsoft 365 groups and Azure Active Directory. So I'll come back to that. If you have created any labels for your tasks, you'll see the label. We'll see the description. So we all have a shared understanding of what the work is. And then you have your start, your finish, duration, percent complete, the buckets. These buckets are created for each project, as are the labels. So you decide what buckets you want for this project. Priority. And just recently, Microsoft introduced checklist items. So we have the ability to break this task down into additional detailed checklist items. That's been a very, very common request over the years. So you can see we've completed 3 out of 5 checklist items at this point. I have my effort here. So effort completed, effort remaining, total effort. And if you do add any custom fields, they'll be available down here. On the right-hand side, I see my dependencies. So this task depends on product testing being complete. So it's a driving predecessor, and I can add additional dependencies here. We also have the ability to attach documents. Now, these documents are sitting when you have a group in Microsoft 365, you automatically get a SharePoint team site with a document library, and these documents sit in that document library, and you can link a task to those. If we were doing this inside of Teams, we also would have the ability to have a conversation around the task, but we wanted to just show you the native out-of-the-box functionality first. So that's the grid view. In the board view, we have more of a Kanban-like experience where we have the ability to see all of our tasks on a board. And of course, you can, as you would expect, drag and drop tasks between these. Now, on this project, the buckets are departments, but they can be anything you want. We can also, though, if you look up here in the upper right-hand corner, we can look at by group by assigned to. So which unassigned tasks do we have? Which ones are assigned to Tina, Amy, Danielle, and so on? And you get to see kind of a preview of those tasks. I can look at it by progress, not started, in progress, completed. I can look at those by finish date, which tasks are running late, or those that have been completed, and which ones are future tasks. Look at it by labels, scope, analysis, design, development, deployment, or whatever labels you choose, and by priority. So just a lot of great ways to look at our options here. All of these views have the ability to filter. So if I want to look at tasks that are currently running late, I can do that under the finish date filter. If I want to look at tasks that have not started, I can filter for that, plus in progress maybe. I can filter for all of my testing tasks. I can filter for all the work assigned to the marketing department or sales department and so on. So just a great way to interact with the data. Likewise, priority, critical path. And if I want to look at assigned to individuals, I can do that. And some custom fields, depending on what format it is, will also show up in the filter here. And by the way, the critical path, if you show that in the timeline view, it'll actually highlight the critical path in red, like you might be used to from the desktop client. Speaking of the timeline view, let's look at that here. So the timeline view, let me just zoom out a little bit here. The timeline view gives me a more traditional what we would call a Gantt chart in the past view. Here, when I mouse over a task, you'll see at the top, it tells me what the dates are. And if I have portions of the work breakdown structure collapsed, it will show me numbers to the left of that. That's because this task is dependent on tasks 12 and 13. And likewise, this task down here is a driving predecessor to tasks 26 and task 28. I do have the ability, let me expand this here. I do have the ability to change the duration of a task just visually here. I do have the ability to create dependencies between tasks like that. And I have the ability to actually move a task to just, I didn't mean to open it, to grab a task and move it on the timeline here. So you do have some very nice options in the timeline view. And then, of course, you've already seen the ability to zoom. So I kind of zoom in and out here and see that. And let me just add the critical path here. So it looks like the critical path is actually, let's see here. Yeah, it looks like because we've added a project summary task, the critical path is actually there at the top. So there you go with that. All right. There is a charts view, which is basically a report on what are the tasks by status, tasks by bucket, and the effort per person. You know, it's a nice way to look at it. But this brand new view, the people view, which I really, really like, is really great. It allows you to see the work by team member, whether in hours or by number of tasks. And I like to see the full details and see completed tasks, so I'll just turn those things off. So I can see, you know, which tasks Danielle is working on, and I can see the coloring based on the buckets, and I can see the status, you know, whether they have, whether they're urgent. I can see important tasks, and it'll highlight whether they're overdue. And again, the filtering here is great. So when I come in here and choose my, if I want to look at my testing tasks again, I can see the testing tasks, but this time by who's responsible and if any of the testing work is running late at this point. So I think Microsoft's done just overall a very, very nice job of that experience. Couple of other things you can export if you want to do some additional analysis or maybe send this to somebody outside your organization. You can export the schedule to Excel. You can copy the project, which means you can use it as a starting point for the next project. And if I'm in my timeline view, I can also export the timeline to a PDF file. You can access the team files on the SharePoint site from here, and you can view the project details here, just the high-level information about the project. Okay. Another key concept, and this is actually quite clever, is that if you want to collaborate on a schedule, you can either create a new Microsoft 365 group or you can use an existing group. That means you get all of the people who are allowed to collaborate on this project are automatically added, but it also sets up the whole infrastructure. So with that group, as I mentioned, you get the SharePoint team site with the document library. You get an email address for the project. You get a OneNote file. And so it really puts the whole infrastructure in place. And that's what enables us to do the Teams integration, which we're going to go to next. So this is the native project for the web without anything else. Now, if we switch over to Teams, you'll see that inside of Teams, we have the exact same experience, but the difference is that now I have a dedicated channel. So if you look on the left-hand side here, this project, the Absolute Technology R400 infrastructure project, this project is a part of an acquisitions program. So each channel here represents a project that rolls up into this program. Down below, you have a 2022 IT portfolio, which means you have programs and projects rolling up into a portfolio. Now, what that does is it provides us one place for the team to come and collaborate. The standard functionality in a Teams channel is that you get the posts tab here. That's for any communication, any chats. It'll track any activity. So if I email if I email a document into the channel, it'll show up in the posts here. If I create an event on the calendar, it shows up here. If I have a conversation around a document, it shows up here. If I just want to send out a group notification, it shows up here. So this is where the team comes to communicate about the project. And then all of the files, of course, are here too. So the great thing about this is, yes, on the back end, this is all stored on the SharePoint site. But if you look at what Teams adds is the ability to have a conversation about the document, not just inside the document of collaborative co-authoring. You can open it in SharePoint, which I'll do real quick, just so you can see how this works. So here is a dedicated folder structure for this particular project, and here are my email messages that have been sent in and the other documents. Okay. I mentioned that by default you also get a OneNote file. So each team has a OneNote file, and then each channel can have subsections in there. So that's nice to track all of your meeting minutes, your vendor conversations, and so on. And now all of your notes are searchable, and they download down to the synchronize down to the user's desktops. And we've already seen the task tab here. This again works exactly the same as what you just saw natively. We also then have the ability to do things like embed our project status reports, which is actually kind of fast forwarding a little bit to the Power Platform stuff, but it fits in nicely in the demonstration here. So again, Project for the Web on its own does a great job of task management. You do it inside of Teams. It gives you the collaboration aspect. And then we're going to move on to the Power Platform portion now and talk about what the Power Platform adds. So with the Power Platform and because Project for the Web is just natively integrated into Office 365 and the Power Platform, it's relatively straightforward to connect the two and add additional capabilities around it. And I'm going to show you some of the work that we've done, something we've built called Sensei IQ, but you can do a lot of this yourselves. For example, governance workflow. So here's the project, the Absolute Technology Project, which we know we've already seen the schedule for. This uses the Dynamics business process flow that you may be familiar with in CRM today. So I have the ability to do my governance stages and my checklist items. And with that, you can then choose to add approvals to go between these steps. You can choose to add notifications, and that all is done through Power Automate. So in this case, the Dynamics Business Process Flow provides the workflow engine. The Power Automate provides the approvals and the notifications. I then also have the ability to add more data around my project. So capture things like, detailed description, or which department is this for, or what is the target finish date? Is this to help run, grow, transform the business, or whatever you want? Business case information, for example. Then a lot of organizations in recent years have started tracking key dates. So key dates are important milestones that we want to report on, maybe separately from the project schedule. This is something that we want management visibility into. So the ability to do these top-down key dates is something that's important to a lot of people. Of course, most projects that we find want to do some kind of issues tracking. And again, this is all the data is stored inside of your tenant in Dataverse, sits right alongside the data you already have. Data never gets moved out of your tenant. So here you have what you might be doing in Excel today, an issues log, you now do natively here through a Power Apps entity and solution here. Likewise with risks, you have the ability to track the risks on your project. Now, in theory, if you wanted to, because we're integrated with Azure Active Directory, team members can get notifications when they're assigned a risk and an issue. You could also add additional governance here, so you could actually add an approval to resolve an issue or a risk. Likewise with change requests, you could add approvals for that. And the great thing is all of this aggregates up into organizational-wide reporting, so you get to see all of the risks, all the issues, all the decisions, the change requests, the lessons learned across projects. Another great feature to do is with Power Apps, you have the ability to create a project status update module. So, for example, I can come in and every week track the status of my overall project, maybe my deliverables, schedule, work, financials, issues, risks, change requests, all these different key performance indicators. And then what we do is every week when the project manager comes in here and provides a new status update, we take a snapshot of the data. What that means is I can go back in time and see what did things look like at that point in time. Let me just do that real quick here. So I have 3 status updates on this project here, and let me make this a little bit bigger. So on September 18th, which we typically status on Sunday, Monday morning status for Sunday, but depends on what you do, I had 6 active issues, deliverables, 1 overdue. My budget was this, my forecast was this, I had two overdue issues, 1 overdue risk. And then I can go back in time and see what did that look like on September 11th, what did that look like on September 4th, and you'll see that we snapshot that data and have the ability to see what did the project manager say at that point in time. Let me just close these out. So I like that feature as well, the ability to track the history on the project. You can also build out a resource budget or resource plan for your project. What that does is it allows you to say, I need, 3 business analysts, 4 developers, and then actually send off for formal approvals. We can formally allocate people to projects, and then we can track their availability. And I am going to come back and look at that here in just a little bit. But if I just look at here in November, Miriam is over allocated by 16 hours based on 160 hours of capacity, committed 160 hours elsewhere, and committed 16 hours here, which is a 10% over allocation. So you get the idea. All right, let me close out of this. Okay. So at a project level, I get to track all of those wonderful things. And I mentioned that they aggregate, right? So we just zoomed in to one project. So there's one project, management project for the web. We're collaborating in teams. We're tracking our issues and risks through Power Apps. And so when we look across the entire organization, this all aggregates up. So here are all of the projects. And where's the one I just had? I lost track of it right this minute, but my absolute project's in here somewhere. But if I mouse over one of these projects, I can see the most recent project status. And I can see how many active issues do we have across all projects, how many active risks, how many active changes. And if I filter this by department, for example, I can see that we have 30 active issues in IT. If I further filter that by sponsor, I can see that how many we have per individual sponsor here as well. So just a lot of great ways to look at the data. Get a more visual view of all the projects here. Again, these projects can be managed in different execution tools, but they're still part of our portfolio. The key dates aggregate up very nicely. So let me actually go out to September. So you'll see that these are the key dates. There are no key dates today, but tomorrow I have to determine the makeup of the 4 focus groups, and that's on track. I have an employee satisfaction survey that's on track. This is aggregating key dates from projects across my entire organization. Okay. Likewise, all of the project milestones from the schedules aggregate up, as do the financials, the tasks, the resources, the issues, the risks, the decisions, and all that good stuff. And it's easier to report on because the majority of the data sits in the same place, unless you're using, for example, Jira. That data obviously it's not going to sit in Dataverse, but most of your data is otherwise going to sit in Dataverse inside of your Office 365 tenant. All right, so let's look at another scenario here for intake. A lot of organizations want to better manage the intake of work. So you have the ability with the Power Apps solution to say, I'm gonna call a project is a proposal that's been approved, or a business case that's been approved, depending on your terminology. So right now, what do we have? We currently have 17 proposed initiatives that are pending my approval. I have the partner integration. I'm building offshore wind farms. I'm doing all these different wonderful things here. I can link and go look at the business case behind these proposals. I can see how long these proposed initiatives have been pending my approval. I can look at the proposed start, proposed finish, effort, cost, financial benefits, ROI, or whatever else you choose to do. I'll open one up in just a second, but before I do, when you combine a proposal with a resource plan, meaning an estimate or resource budget, an estimate of what your resource needs are going to be, then you can get a look ahead view of what is my resource demand over time. I can see that next month I have 5,261 hours already committed on existing projects, but I have an additional 3,512 hours requested on these different proposed initiatives here. And then the red line shows me my capacity line, which you can obviously see if I take on all of the work. In fact, I'm already over allocated just with the existing work in October. But if I take on all of the work, I'm going to be over allocated for the next 7 or 8, 9 months or something like that. And you can look at that by resource department. You can look at it by role. So really just kind of pulling all the pieces together. But let me go back and click on one of these proposals so you can see what that looks like. So I have this one, which is happening right outside my door right now, which is a light rail extension on Central Avenue. So if you hear construction noise, that's what this is. So here's an example of a proposed initiative. And of course, you can have, because this is a Power Apps solution and entity and form, you can put whatever data you want on here relatively easily. And so there you have a different governance process. You know, have we completed the business case? Have we assigned a project manager? Do we have departmental approval? And so on. And then when we actually send these off for approvals, Power Automate kicks in with Flow, sends an email to the sponsor, sends a notification into the Teams channel. And so it's all electronic online signatures as well. All right, so let's talk about resource management a little bit more. You very briefly saw how you can request resources. You also have, from a resource manager's perspective, expand this here, you have the ability to look across all of the folks in the organization and see what are they working on and are they currently over allocated. So if I pick on Albert here, so Albert has been allocated to the 2022 customer support initiative, the IT production support and enhancement, and then 3 formal projects, the auto billing, the Genoa Vineyard and Penguin Seafaring Drone, very interesting projects apparently. And just, you know, at a glance, I can see that, you know, we've already over allocated Albert by 44 hours. So we have the proposed time. This project requested 40 hours and was allocated 40 hours. This project requested 40, was allocated 40. We have this project here that's requesting 40 hours, which we have not yet actually formally committed to. So we haven't gone ahead and actually approved this allocation here. But what this allows me to do, separating the resource allocations from the schedule, it allows me to better manage my allocation and move resources around to more strategic, more important projects as well. And let me see where I want to go with this. So what that does is it then allows me, and Power BI, you've seen me use Power BI a couple of times, is really integral to all of this. It then allows me to see what is the overall availability picture, and I'm going to pick a role here, for my developers, for example. Well, my developers are over allocated by almost 1,900 hours in the month of October if I take on both the proposed and the committed work. So you can look at what are my resources by department, by role? Have we committed them? Are they proposed? Yeah. So lots of ways to look at this. And what this allows you to do is look at your long-term resource needs in the organization. All right, I'm going to just want to show you a couple more things real quick here before we go to the Q&A. I'm getting my notification here that we have got to go to Q&A in less than 10 minutes. So I mentioned at the beginning that you have the ability to organize the work into programs and portfolios. So, with that, you can first of all create a definition around your program or your portfolio. What is the charter? What are the strategic goals and stakeholders and all that good stuff? And then you have the ability to roll up all of the projects and programs that feed into this specific initiative. I can look at a specific portfolio status report. So now we're looking at a subset of the data. This is my 2022 IT portfolio. What is the justification, the scope, the resources needed? What is my overall budget, estimate of completion, actuals, variance, things like that? And I can see all of the initiatives that roll up into this. So in an organization that might have 100 or 200 projects, this is a great way to zoom in and look at a subset. And then I can get the next level of detail and see what are the key dates for this portfolio? What are the risks, the change requests, the decisions, the constraints, the assumptions? How are we tracking on collaboration items coming up from the programs and portfolios? And what do the financials look like for the entire portfolio here? And you can look at that either at a category level or all the way down to an item level. Finally, let's just look at strategy before we go to the Q&A section here. Oh, by the way, this is an example of one of those flow notifications for a proposed initiative here. But we are going to go look at the strategy dashboard. So if you remember back to that chart with the blue layers of tasks, project management, program, resource management, and strategy. So with strategy, I have the ability to set out what are the strategic themes for my organization. Within those strategic themes, how am I going to track my benefits through strategic goals? So if I pick, for example, establish a best-in-class services organization or grow services sales, you will see the associated benefits, and we can track benefits based on cost, percentage, revenue, number goal, whatever you want. And again, all of this, the strategy entities are in Power Apps. The reporting is on Power BI, and any notifications is in Power Automate, and we bring it all together inside the teams from a collaboration perspective. So we think that this combination of the Power Platform, Teams, and Microsoft Project, and any other execution tools that you might have, just really provide a very, very nice platform for PPM that's very flexible, very secure, scalable, all of that. And it does enable you to do that transition from what you're using today to the newer project for the web, which is what a lot of our clients are doing today. So with that, getting click happy. With that, we're going to open up for questions. So please go ahead and submit your questions in the chat window. I see several questions already. The first question that came up is all this in GCC? Software installed in the GCC, everything you see is available in GCC. Jim, yes, everything that I've shown today is available in GCC. If it's available, whether or not it's been activated in your tenant, I can't speak to. But if you want to see if Project for the Web is active, you can right now go into a browser and type project.microsoft.com, and it's there. Teams is most likely active already, as is the Power Platform most likely. Of course, the last third of the presentation was the configuration. So the first two, Project for the Web and Teams, that's native. You should have that, or you can turn it on. So absolutely, that's there now. And then you can configure additional. Let's have a look here. There's lots of great questions. Let me see if I can go through them here. Can we use the Project Management Office Accelerator app in the Government Community Cloud? I think maybe you're talking about the Project Accelerator. In theory, yes. We don't recommend it. It is not a supported solution, and it is not a managed and updated solution. And with Project for the Web, when you first turn it on, it starts up in something called your default org, and we really want you to be in a named org for most of you. So I would not recommend starting with the accelerator. It is not a good idea. In order to filter by task, would a label need to be added to each? No, you can filter the tasks based on priority, based on buckets, based on assigned to. So label is just another option, Michelle, for filtering. Lynette, you're asking, how do I confirm this feature? I think I've answered that. Go to project.microsoft.com in your tenant, and that should do it. Can I see a resource view across multiple projects? Yes. Yes, absolutely. So let me see if I can show you. And that was Parag. There are lots of different ways to look at that. Let me find an example for you. Because, especially Project for the Web, because Project for the Web is so tightly integrated into the Power Platform, as a team member, I get to see, I have a number of different views of all of my data. One of them is my open project tasks, which is a list view like this. So this allows me to see, by project, you'll see AA10 renewal project, absolute technology, annual corporate. So this is more of a list view. So that's one option. I can also see all of the deliverables assigned to me, all of the issues assigned to me. So again, these are standard, well, not standard, but these are Power Platform, Power Apps views. I particularly like the Power BI reports. I think that's a little bit pulls it together nicely. So with Power BI, I can again see this is all of my work that's current, this is all of my work that's future, and this is all of my work that's completed. So I can see what am I supposed to be working on right now. These are all the tasks across all of my projects. But I can also see which issues have I been assigned to resolve. So these are my issues. These are my risks, my decisions, my changes, and so on. So hopefully that answers that question. Let's see. And there are other views of it as well. A resource manager can look at it. An executive can look at it. There are different reporting views of the same data. Can the overall timeline be printed as PDF and kept on one page instead of multiple pages cut out? Can the timescale be adjusted? So if you have a project that's more than about 20 tasks or so, it is going to go to multiple pages. There is no control over that, but you can export your timeline to a PDF, absolutely. Let's see what else. I have Teams and Project already, but it's the software for Power Apps. Okay, so let's talk about that, Lynette. Project for the Web and Teams you have natively. Power Apps, you can either build out, there's an existing Power App that ships with Project for the Web. It's called Project. You can either continue expanding on that. So for example, you can add a change request entity to that. Or you can work with a partner like Sensei to get a pre-configured turnkey solution that just works. It's basically a templated solution. So those are your two options. Either build out the native Power App solution that has just very little functionality to it, or work with a partner. Yes, the presentation is being recorded. Is there an integration with DevOps? Tammy, yeah, absolutely. I mean, with again, with Power Apps, you have the option of synchronizing from Planner, Project for the Web, Project Online, Azure DevOps, and so on. In fact, let me see, I might just be able to show you if I can remember which project is managed in Azure DevOps. So here's a project that's managed in Azure DevOps. The concept is the same. Oh, I'm not signed in. So I can do that. Let's see if it'll sign me in. So Tammy, the answer is yes. Oh, there it is. You can, again, when you do that, your tabs will be different, of course. It'll be your Azure DevOps dashboard or Kanban boards, but the functionality around status reports, posts, files, OneNote, that all stays the same. Okay. Are the metrics coming from Sensei IQ or the native tool? Metrics, if you're talking about the key performance indicators, those come from the Power Platform, the Power App solution, in this case, Sensei IQ, but you also have the ability to add your own metrics. So let's say that the metrics we have don't quite cut it for you. you can then add your own metrics. Say you have a resource metric or employee satisfaction metric or something like that. You could add that. Absolutely. So it's a combination of the two. Okay. If there are other questions, please let me know. Joe, did I miss any questions in the chat window? I don't think
Looks like you got to most of them.
Okay. Great. Just to clarify, every project will create a channel in the existing Teams group assigned to us. Well, correct. Well, okay, Rocio, good question. Let's go back in and just take a quick look at that. The question is, will every project create a channel in an existing Teams group and place the project site currently used? Okay, so let us go look at, I'm going to pick on a project that doesn't have a group yet, and we will look at what that behavior is. So if you bear with me 1 second here, Rocio, then we'll do that. Okay. Tyson, I will talk about licenses in just a second. So you'll notice here that some projects are managed in Planner, some projects are managed in Project for the Web, Azure DevOps, and so on. And then some projects don't yet have a schedule. So this one here, the Summit Transformation, we're going to go ahead and open that and show how to associate a group. So here's a project that we don't yet have a group, and we probably don't have a project yet. So one thing I can do is I can say, I would like to link this project. Think of it as almost like a placeholder for the project until we attach a schedule. So I can link to Project Online, Project for the Web, Jira, Planner, Azure DevOps. So when I pick the execution tool, then it will give me a list of the available projects that I can connect to, okay? But the question was around groups. So when I have a project, I can either create a new group, which then you can choose whether that's private or public. That creates a whole new Microsoft 365 group. That's not typically what we want to do. That's only if something is maybe very secure and you don't want others to see it, then you create a group. But we tend to lean towards adding to an existing group. And Joe, maybe you can drop a link in the chat window to the groups versus the teams versus channels blog post. So I can either create a group, or if I add an existing group, I'm going to add the 2022 IT portfolio. Add that. Now, what will happen is when I click Save and Close, it'll start spinning up the SharePoint site, the OneNote file, the email address. It'll do all that infrastructure on the back end. And when I go back over to here and refresh, it just takes about a second. Let's just refresh this page. There it is. So the Summit Transformation now has a SharePoint site, and it has a Teams channel. So if I open that team, now it's not going to be a lot of data yet, of course, but it's put in place the channel under the 2022 IT portfolio. So here it is, Summit Transformation, right down here as part of this team. So a channel within a team. Now you have posts, you have files, those are standard. Of course, they're empty. Then you have the tasks, and that's if you have a link to a schedule, which we haven't. And then you have the governance workflow, the project details, all of the Power App stuff right here. So hopefully, Rocio, hopefully that answers your question. All right, Tyson asked about licensing levels. Let's see if I can answer that up here. I think it's Microsoft.com/project. At least that's what it used to be. Let's see if that'll get me there. So you have project P1, P3, project plan 1, project plan 3, project plan 5. And this will give you just a very nice view of what all is included in each of these. As a team member, you can most likely always get away with a project plan 1. As a project manager, you probably need a project plan 3, depending on your usage scenario. Certainly, if you want to do some of the more advanced work and maybe even use the desktop client for some things. You don't really need a project plan 3 unless you're using Project Online and you're an administrator. There's very few users need Project Plan 3 for the, at least for the project for the web scenario here. So Tyson, hopefully I answered that answered your question. If you have anything specific, please let me know. As far as using a Power App solution, whether it's Sensei IQ or something else, you're going to need a Power Apps per app or Power Apps per user license. So you cannot use any of the Office Power Apps licenses. You need a Power Apps per app or Power Apps per user license. Michelle, I think that's the same question you had. Okay, team members have a place to account for their time in project. Yeah, so I didn't show that, so maybe let me show that real quick. So Tammy, as a team member, I can either track my status in the individual execution tool, where if I want to status the tasks, or if I want to see a consolidated timesheet, I can view that through, this is actually a Power Apps solution that we've built as part of Sensei IQ. We've built a timesheet experience. And what that does is it adds both non-project time, non-working time up here, administrative, sick, support, vacation, all that. And then down below, you get all of the projects that I'm assigned to currently. And then I can add more other non-project time categories like jury duty, or I can add projects that are not currently on my list. But what this does is it pulls together from those 5 execution tools, pulls together for a consolidated universal timesheet, whatever you want to call it. So yes, that is one place, one option for tracking time. Oh, thank you, Rocio. So Power BI licenses for dashboards, yes. In fact, let me just find, I have a slide that has a visual. Bear with me one second. I think we have time. So in terms of Microsoft licenses that you need, in order to do this, you need an Office 365 license, which I'm going to assume most of you have, E3, E1, E3, E5. Then you need that Power Apps license, as I mentioned, the per user or per app. And that's regardless of whether you're using Sensei IQ, you're using the Accelerator or another partner solution. You always need the Power Apps license to work on Power Apps entities. And then if you need to see any of the reports, then you need a Power BI license, either Pro, which is the individual, or Capacity, which is the organizational one. And then, of course, whatever execution tool you're using, you're going to need the appropriate license, which we just looked at. A lot of times that's P1, P3, or P5, but it could be something else depending on where you're managing the work. Let's see what else. So I think I answered the licensing there. Can team members assign their time to a task within a project, or do they just assign their time at the project level? They can do either. So right now, in this environment here, we have it set up to track at a project level, but you can absolutely track at a task level. That's a configuration option. You choose whether you track the task or at the project level. And that can have to do with, what you're trying to accomplish, capitalizing labor and things like that. So, all right, let me go back over here. We just have a couple of minutes left, so let me go back to the presentation here. We do have some really great content out there. We have a series going on our blog site that's basically on what's new in Project for the Web. So anytime new features come out, you'll see that. It's senseiprojectsolutions.com/insights. We do have just 5 more minutes left, so I'm going to hang out here and answer any other questions that come in, and really appreciate all of you joining us here today. And we're excited that Project for the Web is finally available in GCC.